ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما ثم ما بعد إن خير كلام الله سبحانه وتعالى وخير هدى هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها فإن كل محدثة بدعة وبعد. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, acknowledging His greatness, bearing witness to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that there is no deity that should be worshipped except Allah. There is no deity that should be worshipped except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is unique in all of His manifestations. He is unique in His existence. He is unique in His names and attributes. He is unique in His actions and His servitude that should be given to Him. And He is the one who sent the last prophet and messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as a mercy to all of mankind. Tonight, inshallah tabarak wa ta'ala, after we thank Allah, I'd like to thank the Imam Muhammad and the brothers here and sisters and children for allowing me this opportunity. I'd like to thank you, as the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, أخرجه في سنن أبي داود وغيره on authority of Anas, who are Asah and Abi Hurairah. It's narrated on both those companions, but the stronger chain is Abu Hurairah, where the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, Man la yashkur nas la yashkur Allah. Whoever does not thank the people, then he has not thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I thank you for this opportunity. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yukhlisana bi kulli qawlin wa amal. And I ask Allah to give us purity and sincerity in all of our actions and statements. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yahdina ila sabil al-rashad. And I ask Allah to guide us to a guided path of righteousness. Ameen. Tonight, I want to mention 3 hadith. As back home, where I live in South Carolina, which is the city of Columbia, we're taking every Thursday and Sunday Kitab al-Jami'. And I kind of translate this as the comprehensive essentials for every Muslim. It's actually the last part of Bulugh al-Maram by Shaikh al-Islam al-Hafidh al-Hajar al-Asqalani, who he was from Damascus. He was from Sham. And during the time when he was living there and things got hectic and fighting started to happen, they left for safety and they traveled to the well-known country, Mosque, Egypt. So he's known to be a Shafi'i al-Misri, and a Shafi'i al-Misri, meaning he's from the people studying the Shafi'i madhab, and he's also known to be from the region that used to be called Sham, Syria, Jordan, Damascus, like this, but he ended up in Egypt. Where many of the scholars ended up being in Egypt historically, this is one of those scholars. So in the back of his book, Bulugh al-Maram, he has 6 different chapters laid out, dedicated towards things that every Muslim needs. So we were able to cover, by the permission of Allah, the first chapter, which is Bab and Adab. All of the hadith deal with mannerisms. And then we finished the second chapter, which deals with being dutiful to the parents and keeping ties with family, neighbors, and your Muslim brother. And now we're in Kitab Zuhud wal Wara'ah, the chapter of taking what you need from this life and leaving what you don't need and avoiding things that are lawful that could end you up in the fire. So we want to take a couple of benefits from the part of this book called in the chapter of Tarheeb wa Targheeb. Tarheeb wa Targheeb. And Tarheeb normally means something that you would get away from. For example, if somebody told you that there was a great sickness breaking out inside of a particular city or a particular country, would you go to that country or would you avoid that country? What would you do?
You avoid it.
You would avoid it, yeah, you would avoid it. So this is the concept of Tarheeb, something that Allah tells you, His Messenger tells you to stay away from because of your own good. And then if there was something, let's say people came in and said, there are some people outside that giving away free gift cards for $125. Would everybody sit here or would everybody get up and run outside? What do you think? You would sit here?
No, they're going to run outside.
Oh, okay. We'll go outside, yeah. So this is the concept of, Tarheeb, having a desire towards something, and Tarheeb is the opposite, fleeing away from something. So many of the scholars wrote books like this to show Muslims what they should be encouraged, what they should be encouraged to, and what they should be disencouraged away from. So the first hadith we want to take in this chapter, I choose this hadith, it's not important. It's a hadith that the scholars of hadith, they agree, even though Arthur, he said the hadith is da'if, meaning that there's some problem with the people who narrated it, but there's a lot of benefit in it still. In this hadith, one of the benefits we take from it is that the Muslims shouldn't wrong one another. The Muslims should not do wrong towards one another. The Muslims should avoid wronging one another. This hadith, it said the Prophet ﷺ said, whosoever does something to a person by backbiting that person. Whosoever does something to a person by backbiting him, then it's enough for that person to be relieved of that sin of backbiting his brother, that you, the victim of the backbiting, make and ask Allah to forgive him. Kafara liman iktabtahu and yaghfir lahu. So this hadith is not authentic, so we can't say the Prophet said it, but we can still take a lesson from it. The ulama of Islam, they said the first way to look at this hadith, let's say, for example, me and say we're talking, and I say, man, this guy, he's really dumb, why did he do that? And he said, who? And I said, Ahmed, I was trying to be nice to him, he just walked away. And now Prophet Sallam, he said, Atadruna man ghiba, do you all know what is ghiba? Hadu Allahu wa Rasuluhu a'lam. He said Allah and His Messenger know best. And Prophet Sallam, he said, Al-ghiba, dhikra akhaka bima yakra, that you mentioned about your brother something that he dislikes. So if the brother was here, a lot of times, people are talking about somebody, and if they look and make eye contact, that person comes through the door, they change the subject. Why do you think they changed the subject?
He didn't like it.
He wouldn't like it. Nah. So the Prophet mentioned this is the base meaning of backbiting, ghibah. You're talking about somebody in his absence, about him, and the way that if he was there, he heard it, she heard it, they wouldn't like it. So imagine this first hadith, the Prophet didn't mention it, but it's a benefit for us. Kafara. Kafara means that sin, it's satar. It's like it's covered or erased, like you never did it. So it said satara liman tabtahu. Whosoever backbites another person, and yastaghfir lahu. If he says, may Allah forgive you, it's like you never did that sin. But we know that the meaning is not true because that person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already mentioned, وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَةٌ أُخْرَى. Nobody's going to bear the sin of another. So even the fitrah of a person, the way Allah made him, if I talk about you or do something to you, by default, the first thing you have to do is control yourself. By default, the first thing you have to do is control yourself. So imagine, you want to, say something bad about me, it reaches me, and then I come to you, and I just forgive you. No, this is a struggle. So this meaning in the hadith, it still shows you that people talk about one another. And as they say, the high road is, if you forgave that person, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he accepts from you, that person would not have that sin as it relates to you and that person. But it's not safe if you backbite somebody to go to him, because maybe you will go to him and you say, Akhi, I read a hadith and it really touched me, so I want to just come and tell you that I made repent as I was talking about you. Somebody might get violent, might become upset. So one of the things that we learn from this hadith is that people do backbite. People do talk behind people's back. And perhaps someone may go to somebody to try to apologize, and from this hadith, although it has some discrepancies in it, it is the higher road that you forgive that person. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And the one who forgives the person when he can lash out. He forgives the person when he can become angry. He forgives the person when he could not forgive him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described this in Surah Al-Imran as ihsan, the highest level of a person's Islam. So although this hadith is not authentic, we learn a lot of benefits from this hadith. One of them is don't backbite. Guard your tongue. Because you'll never have to apologize for something if you don't do it. Number two, maybe you backbite the person and that person doesn't know. So that person doesn't even have the opportunity fairly to ask Allah, forgive him, have mercy on him. The other thing, the third point, is that if a person goes to another person, he wants to fix this, he wants to make amends between him and that person, then maybe that person will become violent, maybe that person will attack you. So many of the ulama, they said it's better after you hold your tongue and you seek forgiveness. As Prophet used to seek forgiveness 70 times in a day. Some narrations said more than 70. Some narrations says 100. So this is the issue for the one who eats the flesh. Not to think when you read this hadith in Bulugh al-Maram to go to the person and that person will necessarily forgive you and ask Allah to pardon you or to cover you. So this hadith is the hadith that we took the first hadith tonight. The second hadith, hadith in Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. And this is related because we're talking about staying away from something. Remember, the issue of tawheed means to flee. Like you said, I don't have nothing to do with that. I'm not getting involved in that. Well, these issues, a Muslim should abandon them. And if the Muslim comes in contact with these deeds, then It's for him, according to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he or she flees. So Aisha, she mentioned, radiallahu ta'ala anha, qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أبغض الرجال إلى الله أبغض الرجال إلى الله. The most hated type of man to Allah, the one who is going to argue. And this term aladdu, they said, has a lot of meanings. We'll go back and explain. So here, Aisha said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is showing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes and he dislikes. Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet said, Abdul halal ilallah at-talaq. And we know some scholars said this hadith is not authentic, or others authenticated. But the point is, there are some things that Allah He loves, some things obviously speaking the opposite holds true. Allah He does not love them, He dislikes them. So in this hadith, Salam said, Abdul rijal ilallah aladul khisam. Now, so here, why did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say rijal? Why did he say men and he didn't mention women? Is this only for men? Why did the Prophet speak in this type of way? Anybody from the floor? I can't say I see you. I'll be in that. I just feel.
I can only think that although he said men, he meant mankind, and both men and women.
MashaAllah, very good. You must have looked this hadith up real quick. You asked Google, huh? MashaAllah. Somebody else. Why did the Prophet mention men and he didn't mention nas, or he didn't mention women or boys or animals? Why do you think the Prophet said rijal? Rijal ilallah. Why? Nobody?
أن الرسول أكرم المرأة.
لأن ماذا؟
الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم أكرم المرأة.
MashaAllah. He said perhaps Salam was showing a level of respect for the women, so he gave them a break. Tell you, many ulama said that the reason the Prophet Salam mentioned Rijal, Dula Nisa, he mentioned the men and didn't mention the women, من باب يعني التعظيم, from the perspective of showing reverence to the men, because you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said الرجال قوامون على النساء. Allah, He has given the man and made him in a certain way over the woman. Many people, they think when you hear the likes of these texts, this is like chauvinistic, or this is like we don't appreciate or respect women. No. But we understand that in most cases, the scholars, they said, men are more blameworthy as the rest of the hadith. The Prophet said, like Allah mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. This is a person who's debating, arguing, making like a big issue. And he has his harm al-batil. He's arguing upon falsehood. So, part of Allah Azza wa Jalla creating the man is that He didn't make the man with that type of nature. Where women, they have a nature to argue and this is a weapon when you talk about in some cases, but they're not held accountable for the simple reason that they may not be feeling good, as we mentioned in the seminar on marriage. Sometimes the women have stomach cramps. Sometimes they have the time of the month makes them feel bad. Sometimes they have to worry about the children, and the husband, and themselves. So they may be feeling a way that we can't identify with. So it may cause them to be argumentative or to be annoyed. But for the man, we don't have that as an excuse. We don't have menses, and after you have a baby, your body has to heal. You believe those things affect the person. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being that He is a Rahman Rahim, the one who gives mercy and shows mercy, He gives the woman the mercy in this regard. As for the men, then the men have more accountability, and that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, أَبْقَضَ الرِّجَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى أَلَدُّ الْخِصَامِ. The most hated type of man to Allah is the one who's going to argue. Arguing sometimes is good, like in the case of a person defending something. When the person goes to court and he has a lawyer, the other person has a lawyer. The lawyer's job is to argue the case, the material in front of them, defend their client. Tabarak wa ta'ala also praised arguing billati hiya ahsan, with a calm way, with good exhortation, meaning evidence and proofs. But this issue, Allah's Prophet is talking about arguing out of arrogancy, arguing to put someone down, arguing to deny the truth. And we know the Prophet ﷺ, he was asked about kibru, that which is arrogancy. He said that kibru al haq, al kibru batr al haq wa qamt al nas. Now, kibr is that you reject the truth, and by rejecting the truth, imagine you're arguing. You know you're wrong. You know the other person is right, but you keep arguing. Your intent is to argue them to the point that they're defeated, and then you make them little and you make yourself big. You make them little, you wear them down, and you make yourself big. So here, this is Aladul Khusam. He's just arguing with falsehood in order to win the argument, to prove a point while he knows, while she knows, while they know that they are wrong. So this is why the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this is the worst type of individual on the side of Allah. Also the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned in the men ashar nas dil wajhain. Now in the Sahih Muslim that from amongst the worst type of characteristics of a person, that he has two faces. He has two faces. And what I mean, like one person has a face here with a nose, two eyes, two ears on one neck, and then next to that head he has another head on one another. But that mean two faces. Like you have a coin, you flip it, one face, turn it another face. It means this person is one way with a group of people, then when he's with another group of people, he switches up. And he's really not with this group, and he's really not with that group, he plays the role. And this is a characteristic of kadhib, not being truthful. This is a characteristic of khiyana, treachery, deception. So these characteristics as a Muslim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to stay away from them, just as his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is why the author of the book, Hafiz al-Asqalani, he brought this in the chapter of Tawheed, that you should flee. The Muslims have to work on themselves. You have to fight yourself because of yourself. And this is important because Rasulullah, he mentioned the hadith of Tirmidhi, أَخْتَرَ النَّاسِ يَدْخُلُونَ الْجَنَّةِ بِحُسْنِ الْخُلَقِ. Most people think that you're going to enter the paradise because you pray a lot. Most people think you're going to enter paradise because you gave a lot of wealth. Most people think that if you do some of the greatest deeds, everyone agrees, you'll go to paradise. But how hard is it to have good character? How hard is it to have good conduct? And the best and the first good character is the character between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How you are as a human being, how you are as a neighbor, how you are as a husband, how you are as a wife, how you are as a co-worker, how you are in the society at large. And so this is the reason why the Prophet mentioned the likes of this hadith, the most disliked from amongst the man that could be disliked is the man who's going to argue, debate on falsehood. But then the author, he starts the opposite, bab al-targhib, the chapter concerning all of these hadith are going to be things that the Muslims should try to do and they're encouraged. He brings the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عليكم بالصدق عليكم بالصدق. Here the Prophet, he said, I command you with truthfulness. And the ulama, they said that this phrase, alaykum bisidq, is hath ala al-khaslat al-iman or sidq. It is a encouragement and incitement from the Prophet ﷺ to do something that's actually from iman, to be truthful. As we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the three types of people in the Quran. Three categories of people. The first category, the believers. Those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, the believers, those who believe Allah and His Messenger, the books, the angels, the last day, the good and the bad, of the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the day of judgment. Then you have those who disbelieve in the fact that they don't believe properly. They don't believe properly in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His messengers. They don't believe properly in the books. For example, as I come from a Christian background, I thank Allah, He blessed me to come to Islam, He guided me, and to the Sunnah of Prophet ﷺ. But I come from a Christian background. And I remember as a young boy reading some of the Bible and how they talked about the prophets and messengers. For example, a prophet would get drunk. Can you imagine a prophet drinking a beer or a bottle of wine? This is unthinkable. Or it said the prophet, he made a zina. Imagine the prophet sleeping with somebody else's wife. So it's easy for them to say, unfortunately, things about Sayyidina Habibana Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the chief and the most beloved of the prophets, to all of the believers, including the prophets. They love Muhammad more than anything because they know his level that Allah has raised him. This is why it's so easy for them to talk about our prophet, which really, if they accept Islam, it's their prophet, because they talk about many of the prophets in the scripture. So at this point I mentioned it because this is the opposite of sidq, to talk about the messengers in a foul way, to not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mukhlisina lahu-din, pure in the religion, without having the concept that Allah, He has sons, He has daughters, and like this. So Rasulullah, He said, alaykum bisidq, I command you to be truthful. I command you to be truthful. Allah Azza wa Jalla also said, وَكُونُوا مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ, and be with those who are truthful. So you have the Prophet telling you, commanding you towards truthfulness, and it's also inclusive in being with the truthful. You'll know somebody is Muslim. Now that's, this is okay. You say, oh man, he's good, man, this is my brother. But you know this guy is not truthful. You know this guy is a bad influence. So you cannot play the Muslim card, I'm being with him because he's Muslim. No. We all have to be truthful. Whether we like it or not, we have to be truthful. It's a good quality. It's something that brings you honor and dignity, and it's from the conditions of your shahada to have truthfulness. That's why the Prophet said, alaykum bisidq. Then the Prophet, he showed the relationship between truthfulness and that which is in this life and hereafter. He said, alaykum bisidq, فَإِنَّ الصِّدْقَ يَهْدِي إِلَى الْبِرِّ. Because doing and being truthful, it's something that's a chain reaction that's going to lead you to bir. Bir. And I said bir has a lot of meanings. Sometimes bir, it means good character. Like in the hadith of Nu'man ibn Bashir, not in the hadith of hadith of Nawas ibn Sam'an, where it says, Sa'altu Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam an al-bir wal-ithm. He said, I asked the Prophet about sin, and the opposite of sin is righteousness. I asked the Prophet about sin and righteousness. He said, the Prophet told him that righteousness, he said, is husnul khuluq, good character. But Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, he mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَنْ تَوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. To the end of this ayah. So Allah started talking about prayer, turning your face, making dua, knowing where Allah is. And some scholars said this ayah is talking about nawafil. Because for the believer, he has to turn his face, yani, shatr al-masjid al-haram, in one direction when he's praying in general. But when you're praying nawafil, as it's reported, the Prophet used to be يعني على يعني دابتي على دابة وكان يصلي على دابه. He used to pray on his animal. And they say يوما يعني لركوعه ويوما أكثر لسجوده. He used to bend to illustrate his ruku', and he will bend a little bit more to illustrate that such to differentiate between the two, because he's sitting. So this, يعني, when the animal is going right, left, east, west, you have no control. So some scholars said this ayah is talking about yani, which way when you're praying nawafil. Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَأَيْنَمَا تَوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Wherever you turn, you find Allah face. Meaning, if you don't know which way is the Qibla, you guess, there's nobody to ask, then you do the best you can. And if you pray and then you find out later you were facing wrong, you said your salat is sahih. Because you made the effort to try to figure out what's the right direction. And that's for the 5 daily prayer. As for the nawafil, and you're riding on a train or plane, then you can't control which way, so you pray to the east, the west. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the issue of belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Yawm al-Akhir. So Allah started this ayah by saying, Bir, laysa birra. But the Prophet said, husnul khuluq, your mannerisms, how you treat a person, how you interact, what you say, even how you look at a person. The Prophet said, "Wallo, yani talib wajh." Even if it be you have a radiant face, happy face when you meet your brother. That the whole sadaqah mentioned this an act of charity. The ma'ruf and sadaqah. Everything you do of good, written down in sadaqah. So Salam said, alaykum bis-sidq. I command you, I encourage you, I advise you to truthfulness. In the sidq yahdi al-bir. Because if you're truthful, it's going to make you do all of the things of righteousness. Good character. It's going to make you seek to believe right, not just to believe any kind of way. Believe according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in the messenger. Believe according to that which is correct and sound. It's going to make you deal with people in a good fashion, to treat people in a bad mannerism. So the issue of sidq, truthfulness, is a bridge to other good deeds. And then the Prophet he said, وَلَا يَزَالُ رَجُلٌ وَلَا يَزَالُ رَجُلٌ أن يصدق حتى يكتب عند الله صديقا. He said that a person won't keep doing. This is very important. So a person won't keep doing acts of truthfulness until eventually his fate is sealed. Allah writes him down amongst the truthful people. This shows you that, wallahi, it's an everyday struggle. Day by day, rather minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. It's a constant struggle. You cannot afford to do some good deeds and then become negligent to those good deeds. You cannot do a little bit now, stop, and then you don't do anything of that deed for another 2 months, 6 months, almost Ramadan again, let me start. No. Because you want it to lead to a pattern. And that pattern, Salam said, that person, if he keeps doing it, then Allah will make him write them down, meaning you will be like that. As Rasulullah, he said, Al-Mar'u ala dini khalili. The person will be on the way of the one that he is around a lot. He will be like the one that he befriends. So likewise, if you befriend truthfulness as a characteristic, it will become second nature. Hatta yuktaba indallah siddiqan. Until Allah will write for you, Allah will make you from amongst those who are truthful. Then the last part of the hadith, which shows you from the religion, is to deal in opposites. If truthfulness is mentioned, then what's the opposite of truthfulness?
Lie.
Aywa, naam, sah. Kadhab, a'adhu billah. It doesn't take a brain scientist to figure that out. Yeah, kadhab, sah. So therefore, the Prophet said, wa iyyakum. And this, yani tahdhir, yani wa'id shadid. The ulama said, this is, yani the Prophet giving you a strong warning, stay away. It's like you see a sign and it says, do not enter. Normally, before you get to that point, they have signs to let you know what's coming up, danger ahead, danger ahead. Then you get to the point, it says, do not enter. Or, falling rocks, do not cross. It's like the Prophet, he said, ومن وقع في الشبهات وقع ماذا؟ في حرام صح. Whoever does something and deals with and falls into that which is not clear to him that he should do it, in turn you fall into the haram. And we know there's a big discussion between the ulama on that part of the hadith. But one of them for sure is that they said this leads, these are footsteps that eventually you'll end up in the haram. So if a person is doing the opposite of sidq, he's being a person of lie and deceit. Like we mentioned before in the marriage seminar, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned the hadith, أخرجه ماذا تبراني ورجال الثقات قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أي رجل يتزوج مرأة, any man that marries a lady, لا أقل أو كثر, meaning he gives her a little bit or a lot for her mahr, sadaq. وَلَمْ يَأْتِ حَقُّهَا فَمَاتْ لَقِيَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ زَانٍ. Allah said any man that enters a marriage contract with the lady. Brother, sometimes, especially being in America, we don't have the same thing when you talk about families, no families from back home in the village, and everybody knows this girl and that boy, and everybody knows the character, and all of the family knows one another. No, we meet people that are strangers. We meet people that just came to Islam yesterday. So the Prophet mentioned this issue because for some people this is a reality, that they deceive when it comes time to marry. Even we heard from the people that have been Muslim a long time, that have this thing that said sadaq ma'akhar, where you delay the sadaq, the marriage gift. Allah Ta'ala said, وَآتُوا النِّسَاءَ صَدَقَاتِهِنَّ نِهْلًا. Give them their marriage sadaq. And the ulama, they said the reason the marriage dowry is one of the names for it. Allah mentioned sadaq is because الأصل من كلمة صدق. It's from the word sidq that show how truthful, how bad you want to marry that lady. That you give her what she asked for. So from Solomon, he said any man that enters a contract marrying a lady, whether it's for a little bit of something or a large amount, and then he doesn't give that lady her marriage gift. He doesn't give it to her. It could be 2 years, promise her a car. Or it could be promise her some money. Promise her $2,000. Give her $1,500. I'll give you the other 5 in 6 months. They've been married for 5 years, they have 3 kids, you still owe $500. I'm gonna get you a car. How much time I got? 2 years to get married. They've been married 3.5 years, no car. The dowry, I want to go on Umrah. Okay, I have to save. Okay, we can get married. We'll put it in the contract. You'll take me when? After 2 years, when I get my taxes, I have some stuff to do, but the next year I'll take it. It's been 10 years, no Umrah. If that man, he dies like that, he didn't give her a hak, he said he's going to meet Allah and give judgment like a person who made zina. But look at the lack of truthfulness. And some people alive can't open a person's heart and look inside and say, oh, wow, he has lies. No, how many lies we can't, you know. But outwardly, we know that people that deceive, they play games. And this, one of the games you play, is a dangerous one, is with lying. As Prophet he said, Ayatul Munafiqina Thalatha. The sign of a hypocrite is 3. And another narration said 4. And in both those narrations, guess what's at the top of the list? Kadab. Lying. It's not accident the Prophet said that first in both narrations. He didn't start with, you know, when he promises his promise, he breaks it. No, both of them, either haddatha ma'na, kadab, he lies. So here's your Salam is warning you of lying, because lying is something that, subhanAllah, it leads to that which is fujur. Fujur, Allah wasn't fu'ud. This means a lot of evil. It means a lot of evil. You know, they used to say this in Christianity, and we have some hadith that have a similar meaning. They say, if you lie, you're what? Y'all American, y'all got to know this. If you lie, come on, say.
I don't know that one.
You don't know that one? Wow, I'm amazed. He's the Shaikh of these things, man. Like Shaikh al-Islam of the old sayings. I'm telling you, wow, you don't. If you lie, watch when I finish, you're going to say, oh yeah, I know that. If you lie, you will steal. And if you steal, you will cheat. This is an old saying, and I think the origin of it comes from the Bible. Remember, in the Christians, we used to say this, and the pastor and the people said, if you lie, and the Ukkasha in Canada level, and the kadab, so guess what? He's going to steal. And if you steal, he's going to be a cheater. And in most cases, look at Prophet he said, I warned you to stay away from lying. Lie of sin, just from lying. When the fujur yahdi mada ila serious issue. And then of course Prophet said, "Wala yazal rajul yataharrak kadhab hatta yuktaba inda Allah kadhaban." And the person won't lie and lie and lie and lie until khalas, Allah is going to write him as a liar. And Allah already knows he's a liar. But he gives you a chance by sending prophets, messengers, and scriptures, give you people to follow with examples, and still you end up a liar. And Imam al-Dhahabi in his book Kitab al-Kabah, he mentions the one who he has this we call it in English habitual lie. Meaning I have so much كذب أكثر غالب أوقات الكذب غالب أوقات. Like most of the time, in most cases, this guy's just lying. Like, don't believe nothing he says like this. One of those kind of lies. Just as what I'm saying, a person can't help it. Whatever comes out of their mouth, some deceit. They're hiding something. Or they're not being truthful. Or, like this. So these are serious issues that the Prophet mentioned. The first we mentioned, from the Hadith, again, showing the point of people backbiting. And there is a concept, if you find out somebody backbit you, you can forgive him. You can ask, Allah to forgive him. You can pardon him. And, if that person doesn't come to you, then you won't know. But sometimes people, it comes out that they were talking about you, and they try to clean it up. You can either forgive him, or or not forgiven. But it's better, as a Tabarak wa said, "Wa'afina an nas," it's better than one who forgives the people. And Allah, He loves this. Secondly, if you yourself backbite somebody, but you're afraid if I go to him, he might be upset. It might become a bigger problem. Maybe he wants to fight me, or maybe we might get into something, someone get hurt. Maybe he might become enraged and angry and kill me. And they say, stop backbiting him. Stop backbiting him, first of all. Make tawbah. And then do the opposite. When you're in a group, a setting, mention him in a good way. Mention something in opposition to what you said about him before. So there's some benefit you learn from the hadith, and then of course the hadith about arguing and debating based on falsehood. And we have this a lot of times, brothers, they argue, no, he's wrong. He wants to argue, make a boycott, not speak to you, make it like you're wrong. All the time, he knows he's wrong, but this, arguing based upon falsehood, Allah musta'an. And then we have the issue of being truthful versus lying. And these are from some of the benefits from the issue of fleeing from actions that can destroy you, and hasten to actions that can make you from those who are the strong believers and end you up in the paradise. Nas'Allah tabarak wa ta'ala and wafiqna bil khair. We ask Allah to give us good. Nas'Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and yabarak fi hayatina wa mamatina. Ask Allah to bless us in our life at the time of death. Nas'Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يحب الحق ويبطل الباطل إنه سميع الدعاء. Ask Allah to make the truth fall, make the truth triumphant in the land, and make all falsehood low. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam Muhammad or Ali sallallahu tasliman kathira. Walhamdulillah rabbil alamin.
بارك الله فيكم. بارك الله فيكم. جزاك الله خيرا Imam Ukkasha Muhammad. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from him inshallah. He's coming wallahi to us today to give us nasiha, and he reminds us with many things, especially with it's okay, with barakallah fi, especially with backbiting. This is very, very important, and this is common when we said everywhere people talk about people talk about others, and this is something very dangerous. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, أتدرون من غيبة ذكرك أخاك بما يكره. When the backbiting, when you sit with people, when you sit with people and you somebody talking about other person is not here, and they mention him or describe him or her with something, if she heard or if he heard this description, he get upset. And this has happened during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He has his wife Safiya bint Huyay ibn Akhtar, his wife, and she's short. So Sayyida Aisha, she's talking to the Prophet Muhammad, and she talking about Safiya, and she said she described her, she's short. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, he get upset. He get angry for this. How can you describe somebody is not here and you mention she is short? لقد قلت كلمة لو مزجت بماء البحر لمزجته. You said one word. If you mix this one word with the water of the sea, it will become contaminated. Yeah, it will be bad. Yes. So this is the issue. We cannot. This is very important, and this is the Prophet, and he's talking about his wife, and she accepted this. Sometimes when we give advice to somebody, he get upset. Why you talk to me like that? No, Prophet, he found this problem and he fixed it, and she accepted. Okay, so and this is also he told us in hadith. You sit in like in gathering, and somebody backbite another one. What you will do? Yeah, you have to protect your brother or your sister. You have to tell him that you have to remind, you have to protect both of them. The first one, because you care about your friend, he is doing something bad now, and this can lead him to have big sin. So you love him, so you give him advice. Please, brother, don't do this. He's not with us, so don't talk like that. And also, you protect the absent one. Okay? So this is how the teaching of the Prophet Muhammad to us to do when we talk, when we sit. The Islam is not only to pray. That's it. The Islam is not only to go to the mosque and go, and after that you go out from the mosque, do whatever you want. No. The Islam teach us to do whatever we. This is the way of life. When we talk, how we talk. When we sleep, how we sleep. When we eat, how we eat. When we go to the bathroom, how we use the bathroom. This is the teaching of Islam. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us and to grant us from His knowledge, inshallah, and to help us to practice the religion of Islam. Allahumma
امين. يا شيخ باقي يعني على باختصار.
نعم.
شديد يعني تعليق الحال التداعي
بارك الله فيك.
والتشاكل بيننا في هذا الايام حتى بين اهل العلم.
نعم. نعم. الإمام الشافعي رضي الله عنه, his biggest scholar, he said, anytime I go to argue with any scholar, with anybody, we have mas'ala, or we have something issue to discuss, which opinion is correct, my opinion or your opinion, okay? So he says, my opinion is correct, but could be wrong, and the other opinion wrong and could be correct. So I am not 100% correct, and the other person also. We have to accept. We have to understand this, because sometimes, if we are sitting like this together, right? If I write this letter, this is one letter, right? This is 6, and I swear this is 6, and you swear this is 9. Yeah. Wait, because you see from your side it's 9, and I see from my side it's 6, and I am correct, and you also correct. But when you take my hand and tell me, okay, could you come this side? Can you look from our side? Yes. Oh, it's 9. Yeah, you are correct. So sometimes we have to move, my brother. We have to understand. This is the issue. When we argue with each other, we have to listen first. To listen to each other. This is the first solution for any problem. Let's listen to each other first. After we listen, now we can understand. We have one surah in the Quran, Surah Al-Mujadala. Right? Surah Al-Mujadala, right? Allah first verse, قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ. Allah heard. قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا. First, Allah listened. Allah listened to her complaint. وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ يَسْمَعُ تَحَاوُرَكُمْ. And Allah hears the argument between you, Ya Rasulullah, and this lady, Khawla bint Tha'laba. Okay. إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ. The third word, إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ. Okay. So, the first thing, we have to listen to each other. Listen, because some people only their opinion, that's it. And you cannot talk to, why you talk to me? No. We have to listen. First, listen. Then we can find the other solution after this, inshallah. But the key to any problem, to listen to it. To any argument, to listen to it. As the Imam, he remind us, ألد الخصام أبغض الرجال ألد الخصام. Why? Because men used to be wise, used to be think. They have patience. Okay, they can evaluate the issues. Okay, but the person who lock his head, lock his mind, this is alad al-khizar. Why? Because he not accepting anything. He not accepting any opinion from anyone.
مخه مخلوق.
Yes, mughlaq. Yes, he's locked. He cannot be like this. The Muslim cannot be like this. Okay, he's open. Okay, and the last thing,
باقي الصدق والكذب.
الصدق والكذب. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا, fear Allah and be with those who, the truthful people. This is very important. If I cannot become truthful, I have to train myself. How can I train myself? Staying with good company. It's very important. When I stay with bad company, they lie all the time, I will do the same. Right? In any time, I will do the same. So the first also, your company, you have to choose the right person or the right company, and you have to watch what are you saying. Especially, every one of us has family. We have kids. We cannot lie. We cannot do something. And we inherit this to our families. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all of us. Allahumma ameen. Barakallahu feekum. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah accept from all of you. And I accept from Imam Ukkasha Muhammad, inshallah. And inshallah, we're looking for another visit, inshallah, when he come around, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Jazakallahu khairan.